South. Let's ask Republican Congressman John Fleming of Louisiana. Congressman, thank you so much for coming in. I know there's some late-breaking votes that you had to do, but let's start with a checklist, if you will, and see if we're better off or not with what the president does. Start with energy. You're from Louisiana, and energy is very important to your state. Has the president made it easier or more difficult for U.S. companies to pump oil and get energy out of the ground?
David, he's made it tremendously more difficult. Offshore drilling, as you know, we had a moratorium, then a permatorium, now a slowatorium. The production of oil has dropped from 1.7 million barrels a day in 2010 to 1.59 now, and it's dropping another 200,000 barrels a day within the next year. And also fighting hydrofracking, which is so important for natural gas in my own district in Louisiana.
Okay, so that's energy. And, of course, you may not like the oil companies, folks, but they are part of our economy. And, of course, they provide us with a lot of the gas we use. Now, health care. You, for those who don't know, are a medical doctor, so you know health care issues pretty well. Has the president made it easier or harder for Americans to obtain more affordable health care?
Well, David, as you know, when the Obamacare bill passed, within weeks and months, the premiums began to go up as we predicted. It added coverages to certain groups without any offsetting savings. And we're seeing more people than ever going on Medicaid rolls, which is now causing deficits in states. We're seeing doctor shortages. So it appears that in the attempt in Obamacare to increase coverage, we're actually seeing a shortage of care.
All right. Housing. We got some bad news again on housing. The prices just keep going south. Kay Schiller says it may go south for the next 20 years. Has the president made it easier or harder for the housing market to clear? People say if the housing market clears its inventory, we're not going to get prices going back up. How is the president involved in that, if any way?
Well, first of all, we had housing bailouts, which didn't work. And all it did was to push the problem down the road and make it worse over the long term. But you know, David, over the long term, housing prices are linked to, and the inventories that build up are linked to jobs. And as you know, the jobless rate is somewhere around 9%. It's held there. The true jobless rate is probably more like 16% because many have quit looking. And that goes back to all the uncertainty that's in the atmosphere that's keeping employers from expanding their businesses and hiring new employees.
Well, okay, so we mentioned three very important sectors of our economy that jobs depend on to be, if these sectors are unhealthy, we don't get more jobs. It's as simple as that. Do you think that the president, since in that speech in April, he made it so clear that he was taking over, he was going to stick with his game plan of big government stimuluses and spending, do you think he will be seen by the voters as responsible for the economy and for these sectors?
Well, you know, it's interesting, David. The president is a very smooth talker and a charismatic figure. So the question is, will the American people buy into what he will be trying to sell as candidate Obama, which is that all this big spending, stimulus spending, bailouts has somehow helped the economy and helped jobs? We know there's been a net decrease in jobs, and any other president in history who would have the abysmal record that President Obama has had would be at very low favorability levels. So it really is up to the American people whether they're going to wake up to what's really going on or whether they're going to believe the stories that continue to be spun in Washington and out of the administration.
Let's just talk about the story that the president is saying. He's saying that you guys have a vision of America that the American people don't want. Yes, we have to balance a budget, but we don't want to do it on the backs of the poor, on the backs of the elderly, on the backs of sick children. In fact, let's just play a little section of the speech that he gave at George Washington University back in April and have you respond.
Sure.
This vision is less about reducing the deficit than it is about changing the basic social compact in America.
That is what the president is saying, that you want to change the basic social contract of America. How do you respond?
Well, I would say that it's absolutely false because we're trying to preserve America as we've known it for over 230 years by having limited government, as the framers of our Constitution wanted, by getting off the backs of the job creators, the businesses. And so we need less government, not more government, as the vision that the president has. This president has had a vision of bigger government, more intrusive government than any other president in history. And certainly all you have to do is look at Obamacare and also the recent act that we passed last year about the credit protection. All of these show big government and intrusion, and you see we're getting bad results from it.
We got to leave it at that, Congressman. John